Right, I realized that the video that I was making for the tour, it was already at 15 minutes and I was barely halfway through the garden. So I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to say the more key elements instead of jumping through. Again, stuck on my thoughts, kind of like I'm doing now. So with the rhubarb plant here, as you can see, it used to be like, you know, up to here. It's gotten much lower to the ground than it was before, and part of it is because it's, you know, been attacked by pests and bugs, and it's had potentially some pathogens hit it as well. There's two that I know of. I don't remember their names, but they see these little red spots, this rust. I think it might be called something like rust. It's something like that that happens to it, to the leaves, and then to the stems. But there's so many earwigs and slugs and Japanese beetles that have been affecting this plant that it's just been not a great environment for it. So if you look inside, it ends up producing basically fungal infections. Like, look at down in there. I'm not going to go in there with my fingers, but we can kind of look in there, and it doesn't really look that great. I'm sure there's tons of bugs living in there. Look, there's mushrooms right there, saying that there's fungal activity in here. And what happens is these earwigs, they go into these holes, and they just basically have, like, you know, they basically reproduce in them, but at the same time they poop and pee in them. So it becomes just like a factory of decay, basically, is the best way to put it. So it's not really good for the plant. Well, in one way, sure, the plant gets to get a bunch of energy from itself. You know, it feeds off of itself, basically, cannibalizes itself. But then we run the risk of damaging the plant for future generations. We don't want those infections to happen. So hopefully the mushrooms and the fungal, the mushrooms are just the fruiting body of the fungus that's in there. So hopefully that's working together with the plant. I've never seen it look so low to the ground ever, I don't think, in my life. And that might be because I went through last time and removed just so many branches. Maybe some of the bigger ones, maybe I shouldn't have removed some. But they were really damaged, and it needed some help. So, yeah, so I just had to clean it up a little bit. So, but if you kind of maintain, if you don't let it get to that point, then it's not going to happen, you know, quite as often or as frequent. But if you look, there's tons of new growth in here, so I'm not worried. You know, there's a bindweed in there. But like, see this is what I worry about, the bugs that make that happen, because it's not what we're setting out to do. We don't want to have our plants damaged so much. Like, they're feeding, the insects that are feeding on it, I don't think are necessarily beneficial insects. Hopefully, though, you see the purple wasp, that blue wasp or hornet or whatever it is. Hopefully those parasitic wasps can keep some of the populations in check. So yeah, so it's a work in progress. It's 33 or 34 years old, the rhubarb, so I'm not too worried about it. I know it'll continue on, but it's just something to take note of. And then another thing is, see this is a wild sage here. I forget the exact name of it, but it's not used for cooking, whereas this sage is used for cooking. And one thing you have to do is, because we've bundled it together a little bit because it was growing just all over the place, is you just got to make sure you go through it and remove some of the old leaves and branches so that it doesn't rot. And then on days where it rains a lot and becomes very humid with no proper air circulation in there, it ends up going bad and then can be a problem for the rest of the plant and then the plants in the area. So it's one thing to look out for as well. This oh geez, we got some great action over there with those wasps. I love them, love seeing them. And this is the oregano plant. And the flowers on it, as you can see, are great for the bees and the wasps and stuff like that. We did remove a bunch of the oregano because it had just basically spread all the way out here, and as great as it is, it's really great for the garden. Tons beneficial insects and stuff like that. It's just it was what's the word here? It was spilling over basically into other sections, and so like even the zucchini was kind of blocked like with sunlight, and the zucchini needs that sunlight initially to get itself jumping through. So you can see now the zucchini plant is it's basically it's growing zucchinis, a lot of them, not as many as the other plants, but kind of hidden by the sage, which is what I was going to talk about next. Which definitely, like I was saying with the rhubarb plant and this sage here, you need to maintain it, because if you look underneath here, there's a bunch that are going bad. And you know, while it's fine that they get used to promote further growth for the soil in the area, and while it does provide shade for the soil in the area, we still need to make sure that it's not overgrowing too much and stopping other things from growing. Luckily, we don't have much growing in this area. It's literally just the sage at the moment. Our other herbs we have over here. So the oh geez, what's the name here? The tarragon is doing really well. This one's been going basically all winter long and all summer, spring and summer. And then the dill is a new one. Oops. The dill and the basil, this was covering those two, but they were obviously got to be too big. And then we tried to have it cover this marigold here, but it just basically got destroyed. Something, I'm assuming the slugs and the earwigs just came and devoured, absolutely devoured the leaves as soon as we put it in. Maybe a rabbit as well, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it was not a good experience this year with the marigolds. Maybe they were put in the ground too late, I'm not 100% sure, but not as great as normal. We have some on that side that's doing slightly better, but and the tomatoes, these ones are from the store here. So there was a perfect example of tomato plants here. So this is one where you have taken the flowers off early stages, not let it set fruit right away. So it continues to grow, and then this is an example of what happens when you let it flower and set fruit right away. It basically stops it from growing. So it's focusing all of its energy right now on producing these fruits, which is fine in one regard, but it's a tiny plant now. You know, it's very, very small compared to its counterpart, which arrived at the exact same time. They were both about the same size when we got them. So, but that's okay. We're going to just monitor this one, and it will end up growing more as we go. Then we got over here, these are tomato plants that I planted at the start. So these ones went to the ground before these ones. These ones were tiny, maybe about this big, you know, maybe about up to this thing, this first bracket, when we got the tomato plants. And then these two were over this one in height. And I don't actually, this one I feel like kind of ended up growing diagonally downwards there instead of up, because it set fruit. But these ended up shooting right up really quickly, really quickly. There are a couple in each one, so these aren't just one plant. There are a couple in here, but they're doing really well. One thing that I will say, and again, I was taking the flowers off, so they set fruit a little later. But one thing I'm going to say is to not make the mistake that we did this year, which is planting a zucchini plant, which is a heavy feeder and grows quite big and elaborate and needs a lot of space, beside tomato plants, which also grow quite tall, big, and need some space as well. So we definitely need to stagger them next year. So if anything, if we were, say, we just had to move some stuff around in the garden right now, I would probably then just move these zucchini plants, or the tomato plants, to be right here in the middle of them. That way they can, they can still have their height in, but they're not going to be directly beside them. What we did have here were my potato plants, one of which ended up dying quite quickly. Well, not quite quickly, but after we put these plants in, this one just gave up basically. I don't know really what happened. Whereas the other one on the other side is still kicking. I got one potato out of this one right here when I looked, so I could look in the ground and see if there's any more. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one more. Meanwhile, oh, actually there's one right there. I'm pretty sure, 99% sure I can see. See right there? You'll see that? That's not a rock. That's a potato. Look at that. Oh man, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I'm doing this video. Let's see if I can get a better angle for us here. There we go. Oh, and I felt it unhook there. There we go. Look at that. I think it was just hooked onto, oops, it's on zoom here. I think it was just hooked onto that little piece right there. Yeah, yay, second potato I've ever got. So one thing to notice right away is there's green on it. So maybe this wasn't 100% ready yet. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it needs to sit out a little bit. Not 100% sure. It's my first year that I grew potatoes, so I'm still learning a lot about them. So for right now, I guess, here, I'm just gonna pause this. Sorry, I just paused that video just for a second, just to move the potato somewhere else. I just moved it just so I can, I'm gonna find another place to put it, but wow, that's really great. Hopefully it's not just the one potato on each plant, because that would, really be funny, in a way, ironic that I only got one off each plant. But oh geez, look what we got here. Oh geez, somebody's getting hungry. See that guy? Oh buddy, we cannot have that. I'm sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. I just had to remove him for us. Is that? Oh, that's a bird or a feather. Okay, well, that's definitely one of the things that we need to watch out for on these plants. Now I'm just going to take a quick peek and see if there's any others under here, under these leaves. Nope, okay, we're good. So yeah, so zucchinis, we've got tons and tons of harvest from them so far. Some quite big ones as well, though. There is like a size that we like. My dad says to pick them maybe just a little bit bigger than this one that we see in here. That one's maybe, I don't know, it's like about 6 or 7 inches, but it's a little too skinny. We like them just a slightly little bit bigger than that. Yeah, so, and then like I mentioned before, the zucchini plants provide shade to the plants around it. And so these pepper plants were not doing very well. They were tiny, but once the zucchini plants came in, gave it a little extra shade, it just accelerated in growth. just jumped right up there. So I'm really happy for that. Hopefully though, because these plants are still growing, and the zucchini plants have prickles, bristles on them, right? That scratch. It's good to keep the bugs off. Hopefully my plants don't get scratched up and ripped up by them. As you can see on this leaf here, it's already done it. This one was underneath this other one here, and so I had to move it. But as you can see there, that's powdery mildew. So I'm probably going to cut that branch off. I'm going to do it down there, down near the bottom. Let's see if I can get a good camera angle here. So way down here, we'll end up cutting it. And if you see where that mark is there, that one as well, I'm going to end up cutting. But I'm going to cut them just down. See where it meets the plant? Right down in there. Oops. Right in here where it meets the plant. I'm going to cut it down there, because if I cut it up higher, it leaves it open, a hollow opening for bugs to get inside. So it'll go inside this piece here, and then they'll, you know, do their business in there, which we don't want to do, because that'll 100% guaranteed infect the plant. The other thing that I could try doing is if I cut them up here, that way because it's not hollow right away, it becomes hollow just around here, but where the leaf meets up there, I could cut there and stop it from getting inside. That way it's not quite so close to the what's the name here? Close to the main stem, I guess, of the plant, which would definitely be where it would be easier for the disease to spread through the system. So another bad thing is these leaves, they're all on the ground, right? So when it rains and becomes really moist, the ground stays wet and these plants stay wet, which is a perfect breeding ground for pathogens and fungal infections and whatnot, right? Because it's literally on the ground. And so I'm thinking I really don't like removing leaves off plants, especially plants that are doing so well or that haven't really peaked yet necessarily in the season. Like this is, they've started putting some zucchinis out, but you know, we're definitely not halfway through it yet. And so the last thing I want to do is potentially stop that growth from happening. But I will say this, that by removing this, it will push this stem to keep growing upwards and upwards, and it'll produce way more branches and leaves. Last year we had them starting from there, it went up like that, and then they turned, curved, and went across the ground. Like they were quite far from the plant. They were a few feet long. The only thing is that was on the grass over there, and which means that it would get wet every night. It would get wet because it's very dewy here. So I'm thinking what I should do is see all these plants, all the branches that are on the ground here. I think I'm going to cut them where the leaves are for all those plants, and that way it'll stop absorbing as much moisture off the ground, and it can focus its energy. Here's a great shot. Focus its energy on right here, sending that up, so we can grow the stem basically staked upwards through the cages, away from the ground. That's why I have the cages there, to promote the growth upwards. We don't want it across the ground. It will just catch pathogens, and it always gets white powdery mildew here, which is like, it's that, mosquitoes, and bindweed are the things that I really dislike here. Jesus, so 20 minutes long. That's okay though. Yeah, I'm describing some stuff, so I don't mind as much. And so yeah, so getting back to the peppers though, I was saying that the zucchini plants are providing a lot of shade for them, which is really great because they really need it. Because as you can see, actually here, something's been biting it. So it looks like that might have been a rabbit, because those are pretty big bites on this side as well. So I'll give it to you this time, rabbit, but just know that soon these plants are going to have this one specifically is going to have extremely hot peppers on it, and which I don't recommend even human beings just taking a bite of. So yeah, something's really, this one looks more like it might have been like some insects, you know, but who knows, maybe it is a rabbit just chomping a bite right out of it there. It's definitely there's definitely something that's been eating. Anyways, so that's the Armageddon plant there. There's 2 of them. I got actually the description here. I got them at Home Depot, and so I'm lucky I got this nice big card for it there. And then these ones is the cayenne. So I guess the exact type is Ristra Cayenne 2 for these ones, which is actually, that means I have 3 different cayennes this year. I have this Ristra Cayenne 2, I have Ristra Cayenne Hybrid, and then I have red cayennes, all different ones. These ones are massive in size, as you can see, absolutely massive. Like, those are huge. Those are definitely some of the longest peppers that I've grown. They are like weird finger claws, and I'm really proud of those ones actually. I'm really happy for them. I can't take full credit for it, but you know, I will take credit that the plant is growing and doing well, but it's definitely not my creation. All right, it's the same one going on that side, just a lot smaller. And then surrounding us here, this is all strawberry plants. So they're wild strawberries, I guess, and that's what I'm told at least. And so I remember when we were younger, we would eat them. I quite enjoyed them. I keep being told by people, you know, like my parents don't want them here, and some other people that have come by have said, you know, well, they're smaller strawberries. They're, you know, not going to produce the same size and quality of berry as, you know, something like from, you know, some of the gardens like Algoma Orchards, Watson's Farms, stuff like that, places like that in the area. But that's okay, because I'm not after the best tasting berry ever, you know, that's going to produce multiple times in the season. That, you know, I just want, there's a couple reasons why I want this. One, I just want some strawberries, you know, and I know they're just going to taste good because I grew them. So that's always how it goes, right? But another reason is that I want it is I want to create like a little barrier around the garden. That's what I really want, is to create this little barrier around the garden that separates the garden from the grass, you know, because my mom doesn't like these bricks here. She really doesn't like them, especially since we don't have enough to actually go around, so it doesn't look, she thinks it looks kind of junky, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't disagree with that. Like, look, it's this one's breaking, falling apart, but the bricks hold moisture, which is good, you know, it's something to remember. So if they break down, what I've been doing is I've just been scattering some of them throughout the garden, just kind of help it retain some moisture so it doesn't dry out quite away. So that's one reason. One reason is to create this little barrier around here, around the garden, which I think would look nice. 2 is to help it stop this bindweed. See this bindweed? Here's an example of it right here. Jeez Louise, where does it start? Way down in here. There we go, jeez. So this bindweed, which I didn't even get all of it there, literally just is like one of the banes of my existence here. It is just an absolute problem, and it's literally throughout the whole grass here. you can see it much more on this side here. It basically is the grass, you know. That's what the most of the green is. It's keeping the grass green, or else it would just burn. It's giving it some shade, you know. But it strangles plants, you know. And I'm never gonna get rid of it. It's very much part of the ground here, and there's very thick branches under the roots under the ground that are like as thick as my arm, you know, and they stretch all the way across the yard. So I'm not going to be able to get rid of it. It strangles the plants, which I don't like, and it just grows everywhere, you know. So what I want with these strawberries is to kind of take that space away from them, you know. So if I can get the strawberries and the strawberry roots growing here instead of the bindweed, well, then I'm going to get a plant that produces fruits, which is great, you know, takes the space away from that bindweed, which is great, and even if other animals want to eat it, they can do it. They can go ahead and eat the leaves of the strawberries because it'll be on the outside of the garden as opposed to the inside. The inside's the stuff that we want to protect. The outside is like the first layer of defense. So that's kind of my rationale behind it, you know. Then what do we have over here? So yeah, so I started over here. It was just from a little plant that was just down the other end of the property, just by that yellow bush there by the rock garden. That's where some of it has been for like decades and decades. So I just took a little, like this was just one little plant last year, or maybe 2 or 3 little ones about this big, and it's completely grown into all this. So no fruit this year. I'm hoping that it'll get some fruit next year. But yeah, that was my goal, was to surround this side with it. And sure, it has kind of gone into the garden a little bit, you know, but I'm fine with it because it hasn't taken away from the space of the other plants, you know. And by having this as ground cover, you know, it stops the soil from drying out. So not only is it stopping some of the weeds from getting in here, it stops the soil and protects some of the plants from being eaten by animals or insects. It also protects the soil. It doesn't have it dry out. So there's 3 benefits right off the bat. Things that I gotta keep in my memory bank there to tell my mom as to why there's some good reasons to keep it. She doesn't like, though, that it is growing into the garden, so one thing that I should do probably is maybe I would get some sort of netting to kind of keep it on the outside a bit. But like I said, I do like the fact that it goes onto the grass, onto the ground, onto the soil here like this, and then this is a perfect example right here, and creates this ground cover, so we don't need to water nearly as much, which I know she'll like that. All right, next we got what was my cannabis plant. It turns out it's not a female, unfortunately. It looked like it was at the start, and so I don't know if it just ended up turning, it harmed, I don't know, or if it just was a male from the get-go, but I thought it was a female. It had some actual flowers at the start, like female looking buds, or not buds, you know, where they grow out from here. So I don't know if it has both parts. I think it does, so maybe this is a hermaphrodite plant, which, you know, I'm totally cool with. I look for the benefits of the plant. I don't need to just get stoned and get high. The downfall of having it have male parts on it is people are going to be mad if they're growing in the area and this pollinates their plants and turns them to seed. You know, but I don't think that it's just gonna do that for every plant. Like I think there's ways for growers to stop a plant from from turning to seed, and so, and the genetics involved with it as well can help, I believe. So I hope people would take that into consideration before just getting mad at me for keeping them, because they offer some benefits as well too. I can collect the pollen as well. It offers a nice bit of shade through a couple different parts of the day, and it brings different insects into my garden, which is really important. It's got all the flowers, right? So that's good. And over here is another Armageddon plant, which again, it was tiny. It was like just up to here. It wasn't growing at all until it got some shade from the hemp plant here, which now it's growing much better. This one, I don't think I've seen it set flowers yet, so I might have to give it some fertilizer that has some phosphorus in it and potassium instead of just high nitrogen fertilizers, which I thought I had done, but maybe I'm mistaken. As you can see though, the plant has been being eaten quite a bit, though the newer growth has definitely had some benefits to it and doesn't look like it's being eaten as much, which is great. Another benefit to having this wonderful hemp plant here, you know. Then this one, see if I can get a better angle. This is the other hemp plant, which is growing basically, well no, my hemp plant last year was here, my female plant was there, and then I had another hemp here and another hemp here. But it's basically telling me that these spots, specifically this one, like this area is really great for growing plants, and I'm going to keep them designated for cannabis. And actually, I didn't plant either of these two plants. I didn't plant them at all. They just naturally showed up this year. Oh, we got another friend here. These guys do seem to come in here from time to time, which I don't like. Oh, where did you go? Where did you go? Anyways, so I didn't plant them. They were just seeds from my cannabis plant that was here. It grew upwards, straight up like this. But then as the season went on, and it got later into the season, and there was some sort of storm, like a snowstorm or an ice storm, or super rainy and super windy, like hurricane-y almost. It basically took the plant and had it on this crazy angle, so the plant ended up basically being tilted. Oops, let's see if I tilted, stretching out from there all across the ground to here, which you can't see them anymore, but there was a bunch of little plants that had scattered and were growing in this whole area. So there were some around here, there were some somewhere over here, and I tried to get them to grow, but I think because there was just so much, like, you know, grass and other things growing in the area, they weren't directly into these spots here that were already pre-made and formed last year, that they didn't end up taking. The environment, surrounding environment, ended up getting the best of it, which is fine because I had those too. But, you know, it would have been nice if they were females. I did also have a plant, it was right here actually, but unfortunately when my mom was cutting the grass with the whippersnipper, I forget the name of it, she ended up nicking it right here, and yeah, that was the end of that story basically. So yeah, things happen, accidents happen, and this one was by far way bigger anyway, so I was like, oh yeah, that's fine, whatever. You know, I topped this one, and I topped this one, and then I topped this one as well, as you can see with the Y formations here. The first year I'd ever topped any plants, so it was a nice little experiment for me, and I'm really proud of what I have, even if it didn't turn out exactly how I had hoped. As you can see, these branches are, let's see if I can get a better zoom out here. They're absolutely massive. You know, this is quite a bit taller than me. You know, I'm just under 6 foot. These are definitely like twice my size or so. Anyways, I don't want to just blab on about my unsuccessful attempt growing cannabis this year. So I'm not sure anyone watching the video, I'm not sure when we're talking about gardening and plants, I don't know how much of you actually like cannabis anyways, or if anyone even really watches these. Part of it's just a recollection for me, so I can look back and get some experience on what I was doing, or either right or wrong. But I do want to share some of the things that I'm learning with other people as well, because it's really nice. Oh geez, look, see, so this one definitely has powdery mildew in there. I'm 100% going to need to do some maintenance on these plants here. I'm gonna have to be careful too with touching other plants and whatnot, because it's gonna spread. So this was my potato plant though on this side, where I got that potato from, by the way. So we can look, oh see, there's an earwig right there. They're everywhere, literally. I can look in the ground and see if there's any more potatoes. The only thing is my plants fruited while they were still in my house last winter. So when they had fruited, or flowered, sorry, not fruited, they'd flowered in like, I don't know, was it February or March? And I didn't put them into the ground until like May or so, May or June. So I think it was May 2-4 weekend. So it definitely didn't match up, I guess, really with the life cycle, but something ended up coming. So if there was a potato that was started in the pot inside, then it got transferred out here and grew out here. But yeah, I don't know if any new stuff had come. Anyways, so yeah, story of my potatoes. But over here we have this is a cherry tomato plant that I just grabbed a couple little seeds from some cherry tomatoes that I really enjoyed, and I ended up just tossing them basically into the ground. Put some there, and I put some over here, but it doesn't look like these ones took, although I did see something digging in this spot after I had planted them, so I kind of figured that something dug them up, which is the story that I'm going to go by. Holy cannoli! Look at that web in there. Y'all see that? Might be a little hard to see, I don't know. But yeah, there's a nice spider web in there. You can see it from this angle too. Sweet, okay, cool, thanks Spidey. I'm definitely not gonna put my hand in there because I don't wanna scare it or something. So let it do its thing there. And then yeah, this was the other cayenne pepper plant here. So the thing is with these 8 pepper plants is the 4 pots that I had, they each had 2 plants in them. And when I went to separate them, I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I thought that I could just separate them easily, and turned out that when I was doing it, I felt like I was gonna rip them apart and break them, and so I got scared and just decided to plant them beside each other. Oh geez, something's eating this pepper. Oh my gosh. Look, you can see it. It's trying to go in there, and then this one's they actually managed to get a hole in that one. So we're probably gonna have to remove this one, I think, from the plant. See that? See that hole there? Yeah, there we go. So that's unfortunate. I'm gonna have to come back out with my clippers just to make a nice cut so I don't damage it, just in case. I say that as I pull little leaves off and stuff, right? But okay, so yeah, so I didn't when I was planting them and I was pulling the plants apart, the roots and the dirt, they didn't just come apart very easily, and I felt like I was going to do a lot more damage to it than I wanted to. I didn't really know what I was doing when I was planting them. Now I think I've figured it out, but at the time I didn't. And what I figured out was I think I need to get the soil more wet, you know, add more water to it if there's multiples in it. And then that way the soil isn't just like a brick, you know, holding the roots in place. Like this, basically, right? I can like knock some of the soil off of it, you know, like this, pull it off, and then it makes it easy to go after instead of just being one solid brick like this. Well, no, that one's not in the ground yet, but this one, see, this one's in the ground. I would rip it out if I were to try to move it, right? So I didn't want to do that. So that's why they're both growing beside each other, which is definitely a mistake that I'm not going to make. If I do buy plants in the future, maybe I'm not going to be so cheap and try to get 2 in 1. Or if I do, I'm going to actually plant them properly instead of what I did this year, which was just leaving them in here, because it definitely didn't work out how I thought. As you can tell, not very many peppers on these plants, and super overcrowded, and yeah, and lots of insect bites. Geez, this one too. This one too, but not as bad. Sorry, I don't know where my camera was just aiming there. Yeah, that's a different one, weird one. But it's got one nice big one at least. And then over here again, oh wait, oh, this isn't the Armageddon on this side. This one's the habanero orange. Oh, interesting. So that was an Armageddon on that side. This is the habanero orange. So I must have taken the other Armageddon to my house, or I planted it at the community garden, I guess. I don't know. That's strange. Or I only got the 2 and I didn't, or the 1 that had the 2 in it, and I just planned on picking some up later, I guess, yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know. Habanero orange on this side. Well, hopefully we get some fruit from it. Like I said before, it wasn't growing at all before the zucchini plants, but now with the zucchini plants in, giving it some shade, it's had a bunch of growth, so it should be a little more used to the sun as well, or getting a little less sun. Geez Louise, this is such a long video. I'm gonna have to finish it up soon. But yeah, so hopefully we can get some fruit from it. There are some flowers that have started taking place. There is a little pepper there that's also past the flower point. Same with this one. There's another one. So there are going to be some fruit coming from it, but just not as much as we had expected. And I'm going to have to take back some of the leaves here to remove any potential powdery mildew issues, because that's definitely what that is there. I know because I've been dealing with it for the past few years. As you can see up here, this kind of looks, you know, that's what I thought it might be, but this looks like the pattern that happens on the zucchini, more so naturally than not. And then that's powdery mildew. Anyways, please correct me if I'm wrong. I would like to know. I don't know if oh yeah, this is where I put what I thought was, oh no, this is habanero orange as well. Oh, that's where I put the other Armageddon over there. That makes more sense. This was the habanero orange, which, as you can see, is being just eaten away by these little bugs. I'm gonna have to do something different. I'm gonna have to put something around here to stop the slugs or whatever it is that's coming in here. I'm gonna have to put some, what do you call it? Diatomaceous earth around here. Maybe a little circle, that should help it. Hopefully they're not coming from this plant here. Oops. Sorry about that, you didn't want to come off. Hopefully they're not coming from like making the jump somehow from the hemp plant, or the drop maybe, I don't know. Hopefully not. Anyways, stay on track here so I can finish this video and go cut the grass, which is what I'm supposed to be doing. So we have some sriracha here, which is, oh no wait, this isn't sriracha. This is jalapeno gigante number 2. Jeez Louise. Looked like sriracha there for a second. I forgot though. Yeah, so these are going to be pretty mild, like really mild compared to other plants that I'm growing. I'm cool with that though, because this is at my parents' place and they really don't like the super hots like I do. So if they want to use these, they could definitely use these. These would be much more suited to their spice level, tolerance, taste. Again though, same as before, the 2 plants in the 1 container, couldn't get them separated, decided to put them in here, and they didn't really grow as well as I had hoped they would. Again, they were doing the same thing as these ones. They didn't get enough, I guess, shade, and it took a while for them to get started. As you can see, this one's still suffering from something, this yellow. I've given it fertilizer. Maybe the ground's just too wet here. Maybe I should just remove these leaves. I put them to kind of, you know, to give it some oh geez, what do you call it? To keep it from drying out so much. I thought for sure this being in a pot, it would have moisture issues. Or, what's the opposite? It would dry out more. But it definitely didn't. So, it's not an issue there. This one may be a little more of an issue as the soil is visibly drier. This one, much less dry. This one as well is a dragon roll. This is supposed to be even milder than the jalapeno gigante. So again, happy that this one's here growing for my parents, because they would be able to use this one if they wanted to. I highly doubt they will, just because I don't think they'll believe me when I say that it's mild, because they know how much I love the really hot stuff. But who knows, maybe they will. Get a little light stress training going on here as well, just giving them a little bend, because it definitely looks like it needs it. Oh geez, this phone's about to turn off here. And yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to end it there.